Wake up, my beautiful artists! Welcome back to my channel, Art Awakening. So recently, a bunch of people have asked me, Jenna, I know that you create all these cool, colorful portraits and they have so many layers to them. How do you really know when your painting is complete? You know, that's kind of an interesting question to answer. I have a few different guidelines that I follow when I create these paintings. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how I know that my painting is complete. Hopefully this will help you create a painting like this of your own in your own home or studio. So I did film a little bit of my process here. I didn't film the entire time that I was painting. I like to use my phone as a photo reference, and I was on the phone here and there with a few people. You know, we're in quarantine. It's kind of necessary to keep in touch with people, I guess. So whenever I create my colorful portrait paintings, I typically follow about 3 guidelines that help me kind of decide when my painting is complete. First, paint coverage. You want to make sure that you cover the entire canvas with paint. You don't want to see any unfinished areas on your canvas. So as you can see here, you cannot see any of the white canvas underneath any of this paint. You can see some of my background color underneath my foreground color, which is kind of the look that I go for personally. But overall, you do see a sense of completion in this painting in the sense that you do not see any of the white canvas underneath. Now for guideline number 2, paint application. My paint application goes from thin to thick. So start off with thinner paint and then work your way up to thicker paint as you go along your painting. So my paint application when I create these paintings is typically pretty thick. However, I try to keep my thickest layer on the very top. When you're using thick paint, you need to wait for each layer to dry completely before putting on your next layer. If you don't wait for the paint to dry, then the colors are going to mix and you're going to create kind of a muddy painting, and that is not what you're looking for. So as you can see here, I have very direct and very opaque mark making on my canvas. So I make sure that there's enough paint here with this red. I make sure that there is enough paint on my brush to completely cover the color that I have underneath the layer before that. If you have a layer that's too thin on top of the thick layer underneath, it's going to look a little strange and a little unfinished. Now for guideline number 3, make sure your colors are balanced properly. So what I do in a painting like this, I have my warm colors and I have my cool colors, but what I do is I make sure that some of the cool colors are still on the other side and some of the warm colors are still on the other side. And I have both of the colors here in the eyes. I like to keep both warm and cool colors in the eyes. It keeps kind of my painting feeling a little bit more complete. Guideline number 4. Make sure that your contrast and your value is balanced. So basically what I do is I take this picture, this photo, and I'll show you right now. I take a photo of the painting and then I put it into black and white or mono, meaning monochromatic. And I look at the painting and I just make sure that it looks somewhat balanced. You don't want it to look exactly like the photo. You just want the contrast to be balanced enough to where it kind of makes sense as a complete painting. So in taking another look at the monochromatic version of this painting, you can see that the darkest areas are where the darkest areas are supposed to be, and the lightest areas are where the lightest areas are supposed to be in the painting, and it is balanced and it just makes sense. If you want to learn a little bit more about finding value in color, I have a really good video for you that teaches you this whole process. And you can go ahead and click that link up there to go to that video if you haven't seen it already. Towards the end of that video, I mentioned, you know, I'm not really sure if this painting is complete yet. So I let it sit in the garage here in my makeshift quarantine studio. I let it sit here and I kept coming back in here and looking at it. And every time I looked at it, I felt unsatisfied. I felt like the painting that I had of her that I thought may have been complete before, it looked almost clown-like. I know that she's funny, but I didn't want her to look like a clown. So here's what the painting looked like again at the end of my last video. As I said, she looked kind of clown-like. I felt like I needed a little bit more variety of color in this painting. For example, the orange kind of up against that yellow there was a little bit too much. There was a little too much contrast in that for me, especially when I turned it into a black and white photo. So what I did was I decided to mix some yellow and some orange together to create kind of a mid-tone. So what I did was I added mid-tones throughout this entire painting. The mid-tones that I added throughout the painting really helped in balancing out the value and the contrast so much better. So here is my complete painting. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a thumbs up for me. And if you haven't already, go ahead and click subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. So my question for you, how do you know when your painting is complete? I'd love to hear your comments. Please put those in the comments below, and I'll be sure to respond to them as soon as possible. If I like what you wrote, then perhaps I will put you in my next video. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Art Awakening. I try to keep up with those pages as much as possible as I'm working on this YouTube channel. Until next time, remember to stay peaceful, as a calm mind is a creative mind. Now go get inspired, be an influence, and make something beautiful today. Peace.